Welcome back, everyone. To finish off this section of linear regression, what we want to do is have an overview of the eventual data set we'll be using for a final linear regression project. Now, typically, at the end of a machine learning section, we'll go straight into the project. But since this is our first machine learning project, what we want to do is explore how most datasets actually require things like cleaning, analysis, and feature engineering before being used for machine learning purposes. So what we want to do is quickly review what the dataset looks like now for the linear regression project. Then, in the next sections and over several lectures, we're going to be focusing on setting up the data for machine learning by talking about things like dealing with outliers, dealing with missing data, and dealing with feature engineering. So we have lots of stuff to cover, and because there's so much to cover, we're going to actually do that over several lectures, and then we'll revisit and finish off with a linear regression project. So this lecture was just going to do an overview of the dataset, then we'll have a bunch of lectures actually cleaning up this dataset step by step to talk about those fundamental concepts. But before we do that, let's just take a look at what the original dataset looks like. Okay, here I am under the linear regression models folder, and there is a notebook file called linear regression project dataset. Again, we're not actually going to do the project, we're just going to go over the dataset and then clean it up in future lectures and then revisit the project. So if we go ahead and open this up, linear regression project, let's just explore what this looks like. So I have a big note here in case someone just falling off the notebooks gets confused and is expecting a full project. But what we'll go ahead and do is, before we actually jump to the feature engineering section, is just briefly explore what this looks like. So the full original dataset is called the Ames housing dataset, or Ames_housing.csv. There are many versions of this that we're going to be editing throughout the course. For example, one that we fix outlier issues, one that we fix missing data issues, etc. And this is essentially a housing dataset. We keep going back to that example. So what we're going to do is kind of revisit what a realistic housing dataset looks like. And the first thing you'll notice is that it has a ton of features. There's a PDF file here linked for you that you can click on, and it should take you to essentially a full PDF documentation talking about housing data here and essentially the project source that it came from, as well as things to keep in mind. We're not going to worry too much about this. This is just more for your reference of what the original source of this dataset here is from the Journal of Statistics Education, Volume 19 in 2011. But we're going to come back here and just briefly explore what this looks like. So after we read this in, we can see that there's 81 columns, which means there's 81 potential features to explore. And that could be way too many features or just the right amount of features. It depends on the actual domain we're dealing with. So what we want to do is take the time to understand whether we need all these features, what can we do with some of these features, and whether or not we can clean some of these features up. So right now, this is just the head of the data frame, so it has 5 rows, but the full data frame, we'll see, has 2,930 entries. You'll also notice that some of them appear to be missing, and you can see that with these non-null values not being all equal to 2,930. In fact, you can see for something like the alley feature, there's only 198 non-null objects. So we need to discuss how do we actually deal with missing data in our data set. You can see right here, most of these don't have any information on whether or not the house has an alleyway. And there are too many columns to actually show here, but we'll be exploring them kind of bit by bit throughout the next couple of lectures. And you can continue down here. You'll see all the actual feature columns, so essentially what they stand for. And you can check out that PDF if you want more information on the full definition for a lot of these. But many of these are kind of self-explanatory, whether or not the bedroom's above ground, there are kitchens above ground, etc. So essentially just lots and lots of different features, all related to what the deal is with this particular house for that particular row. Okay, so we have 81 columns to deal with, 2,930 entries. What we're going to do in the next series of lectures is actually show you how to perform overall feature engineering. Keep in mind, not everything's going to be feature engineering. Removing missing data, that's not truly feature engineering, but we're kind of labeling it all as feature engineering. You can also think of it as the next section as just kind of data preparation. Okay, thanks, and I'll see you at the next section.